Welcome back to The Short Game, a show where we discuss short video games. You know the drill. I'm here this week with an all-star team. This is our end of the year short game special. We're picking our game of the year this year, and I am joined by an all-star team of short game alumni. I'm, of course, your host, Reagan Kelly, and I am joined by Laura Nash. How are you doing, Laura?
Good.
Laura, of course, has been with us for quite a number of episodes and has played most of the games we've played this year and has been a great help to our podcast, and she is now an official host. I don't know if we mentioned that last time you were on.
I've been verified.
You have. We've added your name to the website, or will as soon as you send us a snarky bio.
I will do my best.
And of course, I'm joined as always by my brother and bro host Shane. How are you doing, Shane?
I'm doing so good. I can't tell you how much I'm looking forward to Short Game Con in Havana, Cuba.
Yes, and
finally,
and of course, also fancy podcaster Nate Heininger. How are you doing, Nate?
I'm doing well, tearing myself apart, trying to decide what is the game of the year 2014.
Yeah, this one was really hard.
Truly, it is a Sophie's choice.
Mm-hmm. We luckily put everybody and did not expose them to the 20 minutes of writing on notepads that preceded this episode.
Yes, so a lot of electioneering and back and forth. And
gerrymandering was involved.
There were some really cruel things said between the hosts.
3 games died. They're gone now. They're dead.
Mm-hmm. And 2 hosts. You've never met those 2, but that was really a tragedy.
Our entire production crew slaughtered.
But we've managed to narrow things down to a single game of the year. But before we do, let's talk a little bit about how we arrived at our short game of the year. First off, we were choosing only from games that have been covered on this show. And unfortunately, that eliminates a lot of really great stuff that came out this year, because with our schedule, we are unable to talk about every great game that's coming out.
I can't tell you guys how excited I am for us to pick this one game of the year. And the reason is that there's someone out there who listens to this podcast who has time to play only one game every year. And for that person, we are going to tell you what game it should be. That person has probably a commute that's about 10 hours each way. And so they listen to every episode of this show.
They somehow managed to happen across it accidentally.
Yes,
They've
they
never
did.
pulled out a phone and tried to play during the game.
No,
play during the commute.
They missed the episode on a dark room because then they would have just finished the game while they were listening to our episode.
Well, they don't. No, they don't. They obviously don't have an iPhone. They download these episodes to their computer and rip them to cassette tape.
Yeah,
I don't think they have a phone. They play this podcast only on their Sony Walkman. Yes, from the cassette tape.
Hourglass recently taught them how to listen to podcasts.
So for you, dear listener,
Sarah Koenig,
choosing a game of the year is a kind of a silly thing to do. I don't really understand why every gaming outlet and blog and journalist feels they need to pick one, nor do I really think anyone cares. I feel like pretty much every game out there gets a game of the year from some Yahoo. And our tossing our hat into the ring doesn't really sway anyone one way or another.
So let's do it anyway.
Let's do it.
So let's begin this useless masturbatory exercise. And
this may not be the one game you play this year, but this is the one game that we're saying we want more games like this. This game it's a short game, but it's too short for us. Give us more.
Because the 3 of us don't know what the answer is unless it's not the one I voted for, in which case,
yes,
I
actually,
agree with all of you.
So our method here was, of the games that we picked for 2014, so for our game of the year, we're looking only at games that we've covered, that were released in 2014. And that's a relatively small list already. It includes only 15 games for us to be drawing our list from. But each of us has chosen 3 of those games, ranked our 3 favorites, and I've just tabulated the results. And so we're going to be awarding one game of the year based on our total tabulation of all the results, and we'll talk a little bit about why we chose what we chose. So how should we do this? Should I work my way up from third pick, or should we work down from the top?
I think we should each fill out a Scantron, and then we'll check for hanging chads, and then Reagan can tell us what the game of the year is.
All right.
Wait, you didn't fill out a Scantron? That's how I submitted mine.
Oh, man. I should have registered to vote.
Faxes were involved.
Thanks, Obama.
Man, this is some sweet 2004 or 2000
Topical humor, yeah.
Yeah.
Some 2000 political humor here we got going.
Yes, in case you were
Very
wondering,
good.
listener, this is the 2014 Game of the Year, not the 2004 Game of the Year.
Yes.
So let's start off with number 3.
Yes, let's do. So, working our way up from the bottom, we have, with a weighted value of 4 points, and 2 of our voters weighing in, Shovel Knight. Shovel Knight was an amazing game. That game was so good.
It was good. I didn't even vote for it, and I agree.
Yeah,
You
Shovel
guys
Knight.
chose wisely.
Yeah, why didn't you vote for that?
That was me and Reagan, it sounds like.
Yes, it was.
I
So
didn't-
I voted for that. That was my second choice. Nate, that was also your second choice. So it got a total of 4 points in our system here. Shovel Knight was an amazing game. It's been in the gaming news for a while because it came out pretty early in 2014, and before that, its Kickstarter had a ton of buzz. But I'm glad that we were able to do that on the show this year, and it's still blowing my mind. And actually, there's an interesting new announcement there. That game was recently announced as coming out for PlayStation 4 and for PlayStation Vita.
Yeah,
nice.
I'm probably gonna buy it on PS4. I'm really looking forward to playing it on a giant HD screen. I imagine that game will be beautiful.
I bet you'll see a lot of new detail in the graphics that you just couldn't see.
Well, but really
before.
though, that game, they do a great job with the colors, and it will be cool to see it on a huge screen instead of my tiny 3DS screen.
It will, and Yacht Club Games has continued to work on the game, and they're adding new features. I think that they're still working on some things that were announced as part of the Kickstarter. They have a new campaign where you can play as Shield Knight, and I promise I will play this game again from beginning to end as Shield Knight if that's an option.
Yeah, I want co-op where you can play a Shield Knight
Oh my
and Shovel
god, that
Knight
would be
together.
amazing!
Oh, okay. If they add that, I will definitely beat this game.
Also,
because
I was
this
going to
is
say,
a short
if we
game that I
add
did
that,
not
we will
finish.
add that, yes. I haven't finished it. That's also why I didn't give it a vote.
I almost chose it as my number 1 game, and the only thing that held me back is that I had a hard time picking a game that is just a Shovel Knight is the perfect like rebirth of an old genre. You know, it took everything that was great about Super NES platformers and platformers of that era and made a modern version of it. And so since it wasn't necessarily anything new, I had a hard time giving it, my number 1 game. But I had some of the most fun I had this whole year on any of the games we picked was from Shovel Knight.
You said it didn't have anything really new, but I actually feel like in a big way it did. It had some things that I'd never seen in that style of a game before. It brought a completely fresh take to a genre that we've all seen 100 times. So I thought it was absolutely a Game of the Year worthy game. I think you're probably going to see a lot of outlets make this their number 1 Game of the Year, and I think it deserves it.
So what do we got as number 2?
All right. So moving up, we actually have a tie for our second place spot. And I think this is a really interesting one. So sharing our number 2 spot for the short game Game of the Year are Threes and A Dark Room.
2 iPhone titles. All right.
Yeah.
2 entirely different. That might be the opposite iPhone games.
Yeah, actually, it's kind of an odd split, but it's
an odd pairing, but well, both were on my list.
Yeah, I should say Threes was Laura's first choice and Shane's second for a total of 5 points on our scale. And A Dark Room was Laura's second choice and Nate's first choice for another 5 points on our scale.
I actually really, the minute I sent you my votes, regretted not voting for A Dark Room because, and I regret
I'm
it
really
still.
shocked.
We could only choose 3. It's hard to do.
I I absolutely loved that game, and that just tells you how much I loved the other games that I did vote for. So I think A Dark Room deserves a place at the table for Game of the Year. And if I didn't love so many games this year, I would have voted for it. But gosh, so many amazing games.
I couldn't not vote for Threes as my number one choice, given the fact that I play it 3 to 4 times a week still after having it on my phone a ton. I mean, it's the commuter's dream game because you can listen to the music, you can listen to a podcast, you can play it one-handed in the cattle car of the Chicago L in winter when you're wearing gloves.
Play it with your nose if you can't use the touchscreen.
You can play it with anything.
You can play it snapped to the side of your Xbox while you're watching TV now.
You know, a lot of people have said it's the new Tetris for a lot of people. And I mean, I have played a lot of one-handed or, you know, endless runner games, and those kind of fill the commute times. Threes is one of the ones that I'm still marginally getting better at, even though I'm nowhere near the top score of my boyfriend, who likes to do things like wake me up on my birthday, having beat my top score by 30,000 points.
Oh my god. Do you know what his score is?
His score is 70,629.
Oh, good god.
I think my high score is like 2,000.
I've given up on Threes, and the reason that didn't make my list is because I hate it. I think it's...
Yeah, he has 70,593, and I am 30,369.
So amongst us, then I come in the third place.
I respect Threes, but I loathe Threes for what it's done to me. I don't think...
It's made you feel inferior, and thus you hate it.
It has. I'm terrible at it, and I don't think I'll ever get better. And I think I've just had to reconcile that. You know, I don't think I'm ever going to get a score that I'm happy with in Threes.
I don't think I'm ever going to get anywhere close to my top score again, which was 24,000.
I'm actually routinely getting the high, like 27K, but I'm just haven't gotten the 15,000
She's
chip
specifically getting just above you every time she plays. Specifically that number right there.
I'll also say that brilliant post about the development of Threes made me love it even more. Kind of bumped it to that top spot, even though A Dark Room, also on my list, had that great commentary with it. Maybe I just like developers explaining their games because it makes me like them more.
That's true. They are both games with really terrific development stories. And I think that is something that really does add to my enjoyment of a game, is to know the kind of the world of the decision-making process inside the game, a little bit of inside baseball. But these two games would have stood up if they hadn't had that. That's one of the reasons I think Threes did edge it out for me just a little bit, is that my enjoyment of A Dark Room did somewhat kind of rely on the fact that they included that really great developer's commentary, which I thought was really clever and creative. But Threes is just a game that gets inside your brain and lives there forever. And it just ruins your life, this game. Like, when you play Threes...
This doesn't sound great.
It doesn't. Have you guys heard the amazing... it's sort of a interview, I guess, between the hosts of Roderick on the Line, Merlin Mann and John Roderick, and the developer of Threes. I'll put a link in the show notes, and it was sort of an extra, so it didn't actually go into the main feed for Roderick on the Line if you happen to be subscribed to that. You have to click a link from their website. This was the best 40 or so minutes of podcast content I think I have ever heard, and you don't have to know who the...
Have you listened to Serial?
No, actually, I haven't, so I give up my podcaster card. But...
You only have 12 hours left.
You have to listen to this. I'll put a link in the show notes. Just download it and listen to it on your phone. It's glorious.
Yep. I want to take a minute and talk about A Dark Room some more, just because that was my number one choice.
Yes, because our hour and 30-minute episode on that game wasn't enough.
Well, I want to say why I picked this game, because I think there are games on this list that I had a lot more fun than with Dark Room. And so I tried to kind of break down my choices into a couple of different things I had most fun, things I got the most invested in, and things that I think best represented what we're trying to accomplish on this podcast. And when I put that all together, A Dark Room, I think, is the perfect game for the Short Game podcast. Is it my personal number one favorite game of the year? Maybe not, but I think it is the ideal game for this podcast. It's fun, it's interesting, it's got a great story, and it's told in an incredibly interesting way. Interesting mechanics that change. It's a roguelike, which we all love, but have a hard time cramming into this podcast. It ticks every single box when we think of games that we want to feature on this podcast. And that's why I ended up giving it number one overall. Like, I probably had more fun playing Shovel Knight. And I'm beginning to assume that the game which I picked as number 3, which was Towerfall, I'm probably the only one who voted for that, because that is the game that I've played the most out of any game we've done on this show. That is,
I'm envious of you because I need more chances to play Towerfall.
I assumed, based on how enthusiastic you guys were in the podcast of it, that was going to win number one. I barely played it, so it didn't get in my list.
I've probably played more Towerfall than you take all the other games we've done for the podcast, except for Faster Than Light, and add them all together. I probably played Towerfall more than that. And so I wanted to pick that one, but that's just like a fun fighting game. Like, A Dark Room is everything we think about when we pick games for this podcast.
That's a damn good point.
I 100% agree with you, though. I think A Dark Room is the epitome of what we're looking for when we get out there for this game. Now, if that game had a little bit more, if it weren't the product of just two people, which I think is part of its charm and is part of what makes it amazing, but if that game had a huge budget behind it, and I will kickstart that if they'll let me do it.
But what would you
that
change?
would have been my game of the year.
What would you change? What would the big budget do?
I can't think of
We
anything.
What would the big budget do?
Yeah, for me, it was
That's not
the well-crafted tiny artifact. Like, it's such a small nugget, and it takes so little time to get through, and yet it sticks with you. I mean, you guys played it fairly recently. I played it a long time ago, and it brought it up. But I think for me, I can't see how a big budget would improve it.
Yeah, I don't either. You're wrong, Shane. What's your problem?
You're not adding sound and you're not adding graphics, so
So what I really am saying is that I thought that game embodied everything that we love about games, but it left me wanting so much more. And that's good for a short game, but damn, like those guys, I will kickstart their next game if they'll let me. But it wasn't the be all end all of short game to me.
And that's fair. I can see what you're saying with that.
I really loved Dark Room. The only reason that I didn't end up voting for it, and this is actually pretty arbitrary, was that I kind of felt like, as a game that came out on iOS in January of 2014 and came out for real originally on the web in 2013, I felt like it would be odd to put it at the top of my 2014 Game of the Year list. But I'm with you both. I think that game was probably the game that I was most interested in and I thought most fit with what we were looking for this year.
Yeah, and part of me hopes that I'm not just biased because that is one of the most recent games we played. But when I look over this list of the games we played from 2014, specifically, I think I already know what your guys' number one is, and it's a great game as well. But this is just, I actually thought that the fact that I beat it in both modes, normal mode and no hut run, in about 5.5, 6 hours. Like, that's the perfect amount of gameplay.
Not to mention the prequel, which it really is almost just another mode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and unveil our final choice, the game that got the most votes and the most points.
Is it too late to change my vote to A Dark Room? Because I feel like if I change, I could probably knock it up to spot
Yeah,
number
I
one.
think you probably could, but I'm sorry. I think it's too late. All right.
Stand by my decision.
Yeah, stick by our goats.
Stick by our goats.
I did say goats, but I didn't mean it. I meant votes.
Is that? I don't think that's not a thing people say.
We're gonna
Stick
vote
by our goats, that well-run phrase that podcasters use across the nation.
It's goats, like G-O-T. Oh no, it doesn't quite fit. Anyway,
Game of the years. Yeah, we're gonna stick by our goatees.
yeah, let's cut this part. But
Nope.
No.
Nope.
Yeah, I'm gonna make this uncuttable. I'm gonna reference it constantly.
oh
throughout
god.
the rest
All
of the
right,
podcast.
so unveiling our final choice with 6 total points and 2 first place votes.
Goats.
Transistor.
I knew it.
When you speak, I hear silence. Every word.
Can we just have a split second of a break for a round of applause for Transistor for Shorty Goaty?
Huzzah. Well done,
let's
Supergiant Games. You're the short game goat
Well
of the year.
done.
You're the number one game from Reagan and Shane.
Oh, God, I know.
You're twins. Of course you vote for
know.
the same
Well,
thing.
so
Did we both
No.
vote? How did that break down? I mean, I'm not going to election year this whole
no,
thing.
Shane and I both picked this as our number one game for our game of the year, and because of the way our votes got weighted, basically we got to ignore your vote, Nate.
That's fair. At least Laura's was equally ignored.
I know.
Let's not taint the first place victory here, though, by already shaming it. Transistor's a great game, so tell me.
It's an amazing game. So here's why I think I picked this game as my number one game for 2014. If I imagine myself 5 years from now, looking back at a list of the games that I've played over the last year, a list of the games I played in 2014, this game stands out as the game I think I would say that's the game that defined 2014 for me. And I think it's the game that's going to. I think A Dark Room is an amazing game, and I hope we see more and more like it. But I think Transistor is a real, complete, total package. It's beautiful art, it's wonderful sound and music, the really interesting design of its combat. It has absolutely, I think, the best combat I've seen in a action RPG, and just everything about it that added up to a real total package that was a complete, polished game. I think this is a game that people are still going to be going back to and playing years to come. I enjoyed Bastion, Supergiant Games' first game, but I didn't think it was a truly great game, and I actually don't think I ever even really finished it. I thought it was a little uneven in terms of difficulty in some places, and I didn't think that it had enough in the combat to make it really fun for me. This game did everything I liked that Bastion did and added on to it in a big way, and it just 100% worked for me. I really want to play this game again, and I don't play games twice very often.
Yeah, I loved this game too. I think I played it really quickly, and I don't know if I actually took the time to fully, I don't know, take it all in as much as I probably should have. And maybe that's part of what has kind of didn't end up on my top 3. But I could say this was probably 4 for me. But had I maybe slowed down and really absorbed it a little bit more, it'd probably be up there too. Because I agree with you and this might be what Shane was kind of talking about with A Dark Room. Not that A Dark Room specifically needed better graphics or anything like that, but this does come off as a more total package.
See, that's kind of how it is. That you're exactly right. That's what I'm going for. Is that A Dark Room gives me gameplay wise exactly what I think I'm looking for in a short game. So that's the reason it should be on our list. But Transistor gives me exactly that, and it gives it to me in such a beautiful and polished package that I think anybody will sit down and love it. And I don't think that's true of A Dark Room. This game is amazing, and everyone should play it.
I can't believe this game was a $15 or $20 downloadable title. I think this is a game that people are going to be buying and downloading on their PS4s and on Steam and so on for many years to come. I think it's also a game you're probably going to see on a lot of Game of the Year lists for groups that aren't so particularly laser focused on short games. So hopefully it'll get the recognition it deserves from people with larger followings than we.
I imagine so. I see this game referenced all the time. I think it's been very, very popular. I hope it gets the credit it deserves, like you're saying, but I agree. I don't think this game is be forgotten. Laura, did you play this game?
I did not, and that's why I'm being suspiciously quiet.
I was wondering.
That's why our votes were so split this time. And I should actually say that when if you tally our votes, not based on how we ranked the individual games, but just on how many votes each game got, we actually have a 5-way split. Transistor got 2 votes. Threes got 2 votes. Shovel Knight got 2 votes. Crypt of the Necrodancer also got 2 votes. And A Dark Room got 2 votes. The only reason Crypt of the Necrodancer didn't get mentioned in our rankings there was because it was ranked 3rd by both Shane and Laura. Crypt of the Necrodancer, by the way, is an amazing game, and I think if I'd have been able to pick 4, it probably would have been number 4.
It placed for its evangelical nature. It's one I can grab people who don't like games and make them play it with me, and they love it.
Which is such an important quality in games. I'm really figuring that out because if you have a game that...
Accessibility.
Exactly.
It's important.
If you have a game that depends on playing with multiple people, or if you have a game that is fun to watch other people play, it has to be accessible. It has to be something that somebody can sit down in front of and immediately grasp and immediately start having fun without a long tutorial or having to be taught a whole bunch of rules.
Reagan, right now, can you drop into the podcast one of the songs from Crypt of the Necrodancer?
Oh, yes.
When we did our episode on the Crypt of the Necrodancer, I completely forgot to mention how amazing the singing shopkeeper is.
It's the best part.
I think that's the surprise of the year is the
Oh
singing
my god,
shopkeeper.
it was the best. Okay, stop imitating it because I will be playing it in this show. It was amazing. The music in this game is super good. And then if you hate the music in this game, you can replace the music with your own, which I never had to do. I thought, oh, what a cool idea. Never did it once because the music that it comes with is so great.
So I actually still have not physically played this game myself, but to kind of attest to what you guys were just saying, Molly's been playing this a lot recently. And I just sit and watch her play it, and then I go and I listen to the soundtrack all day. I've been at work lately, if I've had to like sit down and do like desk stuff, sending emails and whatnot, it's all Crypt of the Necrodancer all the time. It's great driving music. It's just great. So the music alone is worth playing the game, let alone the actual gameplay.
Yeah, if we were to rank our Game of the Years based solely on their music, I think this would be number 1. I think Shovel Knight would probably be number 2.
Yeah, Shovel Knight's
And I
great.
might put Transistor as a distant 3rd. It had good music, but damn is the music good in Crypt of the Necrodancer. Damn is it good.
I gotta say, one of the only reasons that I didn't rank this game higher is that it is a short game if you're playing the 2 parts of the game that can be completed by a human being. I think it has 4 parts.
It does have 4 sort of stages.
I'll never know because it's impossible.
No, it's not. I've seen people do it, but
Robots.
yeah, I've seen robots do it.
Just like on the internet, nobody knows if you're a dog. On Twitch, nobody knows if you're a robot.
Wait, nobody knows if I'm a dog or not?
Are you a dog?
I don't think I'm a dog.
Game of the Year.
So we couldn't let this go just talking about the games that we covered on the show or just keeping it to one single Game of the Year pick for the show. So I wanted to open it up if anybody had any particular games that they wanted to highlight, maybe that we hadn't covered or that didn't make our top list here for some reason, that you still thought really deserved recognition as an important game of 2014. What's your personal Game of the Year, these games aside? Short or long?
I'll go first if that's cool. We actually played this game, and it technically came out in 2014, but you included it on your list for 2013. And so it kind of depends on what you consider the release of the game. FTL Advanced Edition. So that was the free expansion to Faster Than Light that came out in March of 2014.
That's a very good cheat position there, Nate. the extra content that came out for this game is my Game of the Year.
It totally expanded on the entire game, made it better, made it more fun, and it was free. And that was great. And how many indie game developers do that? Where they spend all the time to redo their entire flagship game and give it to you for free on a game that was already cheap.
A game that was already cheap and was already hugely successful. He did not need to do that. Yeah. He could have sold that additional content for another $10 or even $5 and probably made $1 million right there.
In-app purchases are the way to go these days. That's how people monetize. I have no idea why he didn't do that.
Respect for your customer, for the gamer.
He just knew he could make a better version of that game. God, that is amazing.
Yeah, and so Game of the Year, because that's awesome, and it's also the game I've spent the most time ever playing. I'm gonna play it right now.
FTL is probably the mascot game of the short game. If we had to pick a Game of the Year for
ever, every year,
yes,
always
game of the short game.
But it's so not short.
I'm playing it right now.
It's not a short game. It's a game that we have done an episode on, and you can make an argument for it.
Come
being
on, Mantis
short,
B.
It's kind of not, but it's so good.
Don't fail me now, Red Tail. You're my go-to.
Laura, have you played FTL?
I have. I really enjoy it. I was actually going to talk about a short game that I don't think any of you guys have played because it's a board game port.
Oh.
Lords of Waterdeep.
No, I haven't. I've heard about it.
Dungeons and Dragons theme.
It is, yes. It is. Well, it is from the Wizards of the Coast folks. It's a board game port. The reason it's getting a special shout out is because I've played it on pretty much every airplane ride since it came out with Justin. We passed it back and forth in the waiting room because it has it's a lot about secret identities, secret tasks, and then you see it to hand the device to the other person. They play out their evil deeds, and you usually end up yelling at them. It's a great little secret passing game where you're playing cards to have influence. And I know that's another cheat because the game's been out since I think 2012. But the iOS port is so handy, and it takes a $60 game and makes it cheap, easy to play. I always have it on trips. I don't know. It's a game I never thought I'd be playing. I tried to do the tutorial for Agricola, didn't finish the tutorial. Lords of Waterdeep, I opened up, was playing within 15 minutes.
That's amazing.
It's wonderful.
I am definitely going to buy that. I know that probably the one game I played most on my iPad is Small World, which is another board game port. And that's just because it's one of the few games that I can pass back and forth with Jamie. So when we're bored and waiting someplace, we can both play it. It takes zero setup. I have the board game, rarely play it because there's a lot of setup and teardown involved. So I absolutely get what you're talking about. That's really compelling.
I mean, I played a ton of older games this year, but when I was looking back at what actually was released in 2014, Lords of Waterdeep is one of the best ports I've seen.
I am on it.
Yeah, that sounds sweet.
Shane, what about you? Do you have a personal pick?
It's pretty hard to choose because we've already spoken about all the games I voted for so far. But I'm gonna have to throw a mention to Nidhogg.
Oh yes,
I think maybe did Nate, did we play Nidhogg while we were in town together?
Yes, I played one time, and I have been meaning to purchase it many, many times. It looked like a ton of fun. I just can't stop playing Towerfall. And when I just recently got the Nintendo Wii U and Super Mario Brothers Wii U, which is kind of now taken over my multiplayer video game time. So I haven't really had a gap in great multiplayer games to really squeeze Nidhogg in there.
Part of why I mentioned Nidhogg is that it's a fighting game like Towerfall, but even more so than Towerfall, it's incredibly accessible. I think anyone can pick up a controller and be fairly decent.
You can at least feel effective in that game quickly.
And with the quick turnarounds in that game, you'll have those moments where you feel like you're steamrolling your opponent. And that's what multiplayer fighting games are all about, isn't it?
Another big plus for that is that I have always felt that Towerfall doesn't work nearly as well 2-player as it does 4-player. 4-player Towerfall is a definitive experience for me, but 2-player Towerfall is good but not great.
I don't know. That's the vast majority of my time playing Towerfall has been 2-player. And the nice thing about 2-player is that you actually have an opportunity to get good at the game. Whereas with 4-player, it's kind of it's mayhem until there are 2 left. And then it's actual kind of fighting. Like the game has some real finesse to it that when it's 4-player, it's nonstop. You're probably going to die from getting shot in the back. 2-player, you have the opportunity to really get into the mechanics of the game and have some really, really interesting fights. So I actually like the game almost more 2-player. It just takes a while. You have to find someone that you can play with.
You have a point. Another thing, though, that I think it works in Nidhogg's favor is that it does have online multiplayer.
Yeah.
And Shane and I have played a bit of that, and it's a ton of fun. So if you love Towerfall and you want a different take on the couch fighting game from an indie perspective with a retro graphics style and a really unique take on fighting games that's really accessible and easy to pick up, definitely check out Nidhogg. I've had a ton of fun with it. And honestly, I think I've played it more than Towerfall, even though I think I like Towerfall better, just because I've had more opportunities to play 2-player games than I have 4-player games. And so for those, I tend to go towards Nidhogg.
What's your game, Reagan?
Funny you should ask. So I don't think you'll probably be surprised that it's Freedom Planet. And this is one of those games that I'm like embarrassed to say, but I don't think...
Oh, wait, that's the My Little Pony spinoff,
Oh my
right?
God, screw you.
Yeah.
And the horse you rode in on, because Freedom Planet...
Yeah, you want to screw the horse you rode in on.
I am taking so much shit for this game, but this is the tightest platformer. It's amazing. I mean...
You mean you didn't want to pick the game with the where you have a stable of maids? That's not the one you wanted to choose.
I'm never gonna live that conversation down. But Freedom Planet. So Laura is looking at me very confused. So I assume she hasn't played Freedom Planet or heard our episode about
before
it.
her time, luckily, or she would have never have joined the show.
I haven't listened to it or played it, so I'm missing all these in-jokes.
Yes, so Freedom Planet, for if you haven't checked out that episode, and why would you? Because it's a game that hasn't gotten a lot of name recognition, and I kind of forced it on these two poor saps.
I had a ton of fun playing
I'm
it.
glad to hear that.
Yes, it was a good game.
Great game.
Sonic is deep in my heart and forever will be. And this was the only game I've ever played that I felt like I was playing an old Sonic game that wasn't just an old Sonic game.
It was a game with some terrific gameplay where you were flying through the levels, picking up the little power-ups, and the speed was better than Sonic. I think this game was Sonic leveled up in an incredible way. If only the developer of this game hadn't fallen so in love with the story
and his character designs
and poured so much story into this game.
It's not even too much story. It's like unnecessary because there's a lot of great games with a long story that are fine. It's like focus on there was a scene where we watched these characters decide what they want to watch. They decide what they want to do. They decide they want to watch TV. They pick out what they want to watch on TV. They watch it. Then they all go to bed, and then they get interrupted by the alien.
Oh my god.
So game of the year.
Game of the year.
Game of the year.
Winner. Top flight. Amazing.
All characterized as like children.
You can play this game without any of the cutscenes. It has a mode where you can play through all of the levels and none of the story, and I think that's fine. But you shouldn't.
That's the way to play it.
If the cartoon anime inspired, it really in love with itself furries storyline doesn't work for you, you can play this game without it. I mean, the story is no more ludicrous than the story of a Sonic the Hedgehog game. The only problem is that they talk, but you can turn that off. So you probably should, but you shouldn't.
Wonderfully
miss this
voice
game.
acted.
It is.
I wish I'd known that before we played it for the show.
I kind of wish I had too, but very few games have gotten inside my head the way this game did. This game made me neglect my life for 48 hours, and I beat this game after probably playing 20 hours of this game in a 40-hour period. I mean, it wrecked me. It destroyed my life. And I'm really glad it was a short game, or I probably would have lost my job during that time. It was an amazing game.
I had a lot of fun playing it, for sure.
I'm so sorry. It's so good, though.
I don't regret playing it. I actually enjoy I enjoyed these conversations about it. I think more so than I enjoyed playing the game, though. Because you immediately get so defensive about this game that it makes it sound way worse than it actually is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty bad,
You should
these
see the
cutscenes.
picture in my head I have of this game, which is just My Little Pony, like Sonic driving through something with a lot of cutscene narration, and then the pony goes and watches TV.
I mean, that's basically it.
Yeah, that's basically it.
That's basically
But
it.
it's so
Yeah,
good,
that's
though.
it.
It's so fun
It's
to
a ton
play.
of fun. If you were a Sonic fan, go play this game.
It kind of came out of nowhere. I had not heard about this game at all until I saw a weird little preview video for it, not even a full review on Polygon, and I checked out the game on a whim because I happened to be in between things and thought, oh yeah, I haven't played a Sonic game in a while. That looks like a Sonic game. And okay, I'll stop talking about it right now, but if you haven't, you can go and listen to our episode about it.
It's pretty much these same jokes, all over about an hour instead of these last 5 minutes.
There we have it. The short game has discussed our games of the year and crowned a winner, Transistor, and 2 great runner-ups, Threes and A Dark Room for 2014. And this was a really great year for short games. I think that it's been a great start to our podcast, and I'm really excited to go into 2015 and play all the exciting short games that are going to be coming out next year. Already we've got some on the horizon that are looking really exciting.
I wanted to ask you, so on the list you broke down for us getting prepped for this, it was all games from 2014, and then you listed out 2013. Now, other than Portal, do we have any games that were made before that we've played?
Every game that we've covered on this show came out in either 2014, 2013, or 2012. I think VVVVVV came out in 2012. Except Portal, which I think came out before that, and I don't recall what year, and Cave Story, which I think came out in like 2004.
I think it's interesting, and it's it's kind of a sign of what we're working towards here, is that almost every game we've discussed have been made in the last 2 years. Most of these games would not have been able to really come out before that, except for maybe some watered down Flash version, but not released where I could play it on my PS4 or where I could play it through Steam or something like that, easily accessible. And it's exciting. I can't wait to see what comes out in 2015.
It is. It's an exciting time. We've got a really great year coming up. I know we've got a couple of games in the pipe that I can't wait to talk about. And I know there's a lot of games that we've already discussed as upcoming, things like Firewatch, that I cannot wait to see in 2015. That game looks amazing, and I just know it's going to be right for our show. I can't wait to play it. I know that the developers of Gone Home have announced a game that I think is coming out in late 2015.
About a space station.
It looks really neat. So it's going to be a really exciting year for us, and I can't wait to chat about all these games with you guys.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Tacoma is my vote for Game of the Year 2015.
FTL Advanced Edition 2 is my vote for Game of the Year 2015.
Freedom Galaxy.
Yeah. All right. And thank you guys so much for joining me for this episode. Where can people find you, Laura?
On Twitter at Laura J. Nash.
By the time people hear this episode, I think your web series will already be started. Is that right?
We'll at least have the promo campaign out. Depending on when it gets released, we'll either have the first episode, the pilot, out, or it'll just have the teaser.
Give us a quick elevator pitch.
Sure. Space Happens is Ladies in Space. It's about basically what happens if you take the normal cast of a sci-fi show and make all of them women and talk about, feminism and millennials entitlement. But at the heart, it's a red door for the ladies.
Perfect. Nate, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at NateSTL.
And you've got a band and they've got a record out.
Oh, yes. Thank you for that lead-in. You can listen to my band's music at bearhive.bandcamp.com or follow us on Twitter at bearhive.
They sound real good. Shane, where can people find you?
Well, you can find me at my local bar, Double Trouble Caffeine and Cocktails.
That is one of the places you might find Shane.
We'll just leave it at that for this time. I don't need any. I've got to slow this Twitter thing down. People need to stop following me.
All right. We'll leave it at that. And I've been your host. Of course, I'm Reagan. You can follow me on Twitter at ReaganK. I spell that funny. It's RayGank. And you can find our show on the internet at www.theshortgame.net, where you'll find links to everything that we've covered today. And we'd love to hear from you, so you can leave us feedback there on our website. Or, of course, you can write to us on Twitter. Twitter's awesome. We're at _shortgame. And, of course, you can also write to us using email. If that's still a thing that you do, we're info@theshortgame.net. Thanks so much, and hopefully we'll catch you next year on another exciting episode in a new year of The Short Game.